after my wife of 6 years cheated. I left her and started living my best life. I thought I had the perfect marriage. My wife, Emily, and I had been together for 6 years, and I believe we were a strong, committed couple. We had built a life together, shared dreams, and supported each other through difficult times. But one night, everything changed. It started with small things. Emily becoming distant, her phone always glued to her hand, and sudden late nights at work. I told myself I was overthinking it, that maybe she was just stressed. Then, one evening, I saw a notification pop up on her phone, a message from someone named Jake. My gut told me something was off. When I finally uncovered the truth, it shattered me. But instead of letting betrayal destroy me, I chose to rebuild my life. And in the end, walking away from her was the best decision I ever made. Emily and I met during our final year of college. She was the type of person who could walk into a room and instantly command attention, not just because of her beauty, but because of her energy. She had this infectious laugh and a way of making everyone feel special. It was impossible not to be drawn to her. At first, we were just friends, but as we spent more time together, our connection deepened. We would stay up late talking about our dreams, our plans, and what we want out of life. I felt like I had found someone who truly understood me. When we officially started dating, everything just felt right. We never had any major fights, and we always made time for each other despite our busy schedules. After graduation, we moved in together, and shortly after, I proposed. It was a simple but meaningful moment, just the two of us at our favorite spot by the lake, where we had spent countless nights talking about the future. She said yes without hesitation, and for the first few years, everything felt like a dream. I worked in finance, and she pursued a career in marketing. We were both ambitious and driven, and I believed that we were building a life together. We traveled, made memories, and supported each other through every challenge. Emily was not just my wife. She was my best friend. I trusted her completely. But looking back now, I realized that I ignored the warning signs. The small changes in her behavior, the growing distance between us. I dismissed them, convincing myself that she was just stressed from work. I never imagined that the person I had loved so deeply could be hiding such a painful secret from me. The moment that shattered everything happened on an ordinary Tuesday evening. A single glance at her phone, a message from someone I did not recognize, and suddenly, the world I had built with her came crashing down. Emily had always been passionate about her career. She thrived in high-pressure environments and was constantly looking for the next opportunity to prove herself. I admired her drive and never once felt threatened by her independence. In fact, I encouraged it. I wanted her to succeed, and I was proud of everything she had accomplished. Our routine was simple but meaningful. I worked long hours, but I always made sure to carve out time for us. Friday nights were dedicated to movie marathons, complete with takeout from our favorite restaurant. Sunday mornings were reserved for lazy breakfasts and deep conversations about life. It was the kind of relationship that felt easy, secure. But things started to change. Emily became increasingly preoccupied with work. She started coming home later, always with an excuse: meetings, networking events, last-minute projects. At first, I did not think much of it. I understood the demands of her job and wanted to be supportive. Then, the phone habit started. She became overly protective of her device, setting a new passcode and tilting the screen away whenever I was nearby. If I walked into the room while she was on a call, she would abruptly end it or step outside. When I asked about it, she brushed it off, saying it was just work. The emotional distance between us grew wider. She no longer greeted me with the same enthusiasm when I came home. Our conversations became surface level, lacking the depth and warmth we once had. It felt like I was living with a stranger, but I still held on, hoping that things would go back to how they used to be. Then, one evening, as she was getting ready for bed, a message popped up on her screen. It was from a name I did not recognize, Jake. The message was brief but gut-wrenching. Miss you already. Today was amazing. Cannot wait to see you again. My blood ran cold. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. This was not just a misunderstanding. This was proof that something was going on. I knew, in that moment, that my life was about to change forever. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't focus at work, couldn't sleep, couldn't think about anything other than the message I had read. Emily's behavior, which I had once brushed off as stress, suddenly made sense. I was living in a house with a woman who had betrayed me in the most painful way possible. But what hurt the most was that I had no idea how long this had been going on. I knew I needed answers, but I wasn't sure how to approach it. Confronting Emily head-on seemed like an impossible choice. She was so good at hiding things, at being charming, convincing. I had to be careful. I needed to know the full extent of what had happened before I could make any decisions. So, I decided to investigate. I wasn't proud of it, but I had no other choice. I had to find out if my suspicions were true. The first thing I did was go through her phone. I knew it was a breach of trust, but in that moment, I couldn't help myself. I found the conversation with Jake, and to my horror, it wasn't just one message. There were hundreds, flirty, intimate messages that made my stomach churn. As I scrolled, the timeline became clearer. Emily had been seeing Jake for months. At first, it was harmless, just a few flirtations here and there. But then it escalated. They were meeting in person. They were having hotel rendezvous. They were living out a secret life that I had no idea about. I felt sick to my stomach. Every word I read felt like a betrayal, like a knife twisting in my chest. How could she do this to me? How could she pretend everything was fine while she was with someone else? I tried to keep my composure, to think rationally. I needed to gather more proof. So I started paying attention to the little things. Emily's sudden late nights, her insistence on working late when she was really just meeting Jake. I began to notice patterns. The way she would come home smelling of someone else's cologne. The way she would act distant and distracted. But it was the night I caught her in the act that would change everything. It was a Thursday evening when I decided to follow her. She had told me she was going out with some friend from work. A casual dinner to celebrate a successful project. But something didn't feel right. My gut told me that tonight was the night I would find out the truth. I followed her to a hotel on the outskirts of town. I parked my car a few blocks away and waited. I could see her walking into the lobby with Jake, his arm wrapped around her waist, his hand casually resting on her lower back. The image burned into my mind like a flash of lightning. I don't know what I expected, but it certainly wasn't this. I want to confront her then and there, to storm into that hotel room and demand answers. But I held back. I needed to have everything in order. I needed her to admit what she had done, without a doubt. For the next 2 hours, I stayed parked outside the hotel, waiting. Finally, Emily and Jake emerged from the hotel, laughing together, clearly enjoying each other's company. They walked hand in hand to Jake's car. It was the final confirmation I needed. There was no more denying it. I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and betrayal. The woman I had loved and trusted for years had not only lied to me, but she had been leading a completely different life behind my back. I wasn't sure what to do next. My mind was racing. Should I confront her immediately? Should I let her come home first? I decided to give her space to return home. I needed her to face what she had done, but I wanted to be in control of the situation. I waited for her to walk through the front door. When she arrived, I could see it in her eyes. She knew. The guilt was written all over her face. She tried to act normal, asked how my day had been, but I didn't say a word. I simply stood up, walked over to where she stood in the hallway, and pulled out my phone. I showed her the pictures and texts I had taken from her phone. The evidence was undeniable. "Emily," I said calmly, "this is what you've been hiding from me. I know everything." Her face went pale. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. She opened her mouth, closed it, and then finally, she broke down in tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant for this to happen. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I echoed. "You've been seeing him for months. Do you think I'm stupid?" She stammered, trying to explain herself, but I couldn't hear her anymore. The pain was too much. I felt betrayed beyond belief. Every promise, every word she had ever said to me was now hollow. "I don't want to hear your excuses," I said. "You need to leave." Her tears were now mixed with panic. "Please don't do this," she begged. "I love you. I made a mistake. Let me fix it." But there was nothing to fix. The trust was gone. The love was gone. "Leave," I repeated. "I want you out. Now." And with that, I took the final step. The following days after Emily left were incredibly difficult. I had always envisioned my future with her by my side. 6 years of marriage, filled with shared dreams and promises, had now been tainted by her betrayal. I felt a mixture of anger and disbelief that someone I trusted could be capable of something so hurtful. The anger was immediate, almost overwhelming, but as the days passed, I realized that the betrayal had done more than just hurt me. It had freed me. I had spent years trying to be the perfect husband, trying to make Emily happy, to fulfill her every need. But it was clear now that none of that mattered to her. She had made a choice to turn our relationship into a lie. At first, I did not know how to process that. How could I have been so blind? How could I not seen the signs? The questions haunted me, but I began to accept that no matter how much I wondered about the what-ifs, the reality remained. She had crossed a line, and no matter how much I loved her, I had to let go. I had always considered myself a calm and logical person, but her betrayal had left me in turmoil. Despite the chaos swirling inside me, I knew I had to make a decision. Either I let her continue to manipulate me and drag me down, or I took control of my own life. I hired a lawyer immediately. I wanted everything to be done right. I didn't want Emily's betrayal to have any further impact on my life, and I certainly wasn't going to let her destroy me. The divorce papers were drafted quickly, and I was determined to get through the process without any unnecessary drama. But there was one thing that kept gnawing at me. How could she still think she could get away with this? Days after the initial shock, Emily tried to contact me. She left message after message, some apologizing, others blaming me for not seeing how unhappy she had been. But no matter what she said, it did not change the truth. I had seen enough. Her lies had shattered everything I believed in, and I could no longer play the role of the forgiving husband. Then came the message that truly cut deep. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could hide it. But I guess the truth always comes out eventually. I still care about you, but I know I made a mistake. It was too little, too late. At that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of calm. I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her manipulation continue. I couldn't let her try to work her way back into my life just because she regretted the consequences of her actions. But it didn't end there. Emily's attempts to win me back escalated. A few days later, she sent another text, one that chilled me to the core. I've told Jake everything. He says I did the right thing. I know this will be hard for you, but I just can't go back to what we had. This message was different. It wasn't just an apology. It was her making a statement about her future with Jake. She had made her choice, and now she was going to live with it. She had found someone else, someone who was willing to accept her flaws, her deceit. But I wasn't going to accept that reality. I had spent years trying to understand Emily and her needs, but now I was seeing the truth. She was not the woman I had married. She was someone who had chosen her own selfish desires over everything we had built together. I had to make peace with that fact. The days passed, and my resolve only grew stronger. I focused on myself, on healing, on rebuilding, on finding my own happiness. I knew I had to take control of my life again, and I did just that. I spent more time with friends, rediscovered my hobbies, and even started doing things that had always been on my someday list. I was no longer living for her, but for myself. Then, a phone call changed everything. It came from Emily's workplace. I had no idea what this was about, but the call set everything in motion. "Hello, Mr. Dawson?" the voice on the other end asked. "Yes, this is..." I replied, still trying to make sense of the situation. "This is Karen from HR. I regret to inform you that Emily has been let go from her position." At first, I thought I had misheard. What? What do you mean? There were serious violations of the company's policy regarding personal conduct. After an internal investigation, we determined that her actions were unacceptable. She has been dismissed from her position, effective immediately. I felt a mix of disbelief and vindication. The affair was now public knowledge. Emily's choices had consequences. She had not only destroyed our marriage, but now her professional life had crumbled as well. What were the violations? I asked, almost too stunned to speak. I'm afraid I cannot provide those details. However, I can confirm that the nature of her behavior involved ethical breaches that could not be overlooked, Karen replied. I hung up the phone, my mind reeling. I couldn't believe it. Emily had lost everything. She had tried to keep her affair hidden, but now the truth was out. Her reputation, her career, her relationship, all of it had fallen apart. But even though a part of me felt sorry for her, I knew this was her doing. She had made her choices, and now she was paying the price. She had been so caught up in her deceit that she didn't realize the consequences would follow her everywhere. It didn't take long for me to hear more from mutual friends. Whispers of her affair had spread like wildfire. People began to talk, and soon Emily's reputation had been tarnished. She had no one to blame but herself. And as for me, I knew I had made the right decision. I wasn't going to stay in a relationship where I was treated as less than I deserved. I wasn't going to continue pretending everything was okay when it was clear that my marriage had been nothing but a lie. I had faced the hardest truth of my life, and it had set me free. I could now look forward to a future that was no longer tainted by betrayal. I had moved on from the past, and it felt liberating. The days following Emily's dismissal from her job were strangely calm. I felt a sense of detachment, like a heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. In the past, I had tried to hold everything together. But now, I realized that I had been holding on to something that was long gone, a relationship built on lies and deceit. Emily's actions had broken the very foundation of our marriage, and it was time for me to let go. The first few weeks after our separation were filled with a mix of emotions. I found myself wrestling with guilt. Was I too harsh in my decision to cut ties with her? Could I have given her a chance to explain herself, to work through the pain? But deep down, I knew that I had done the right thing. I had given her the opportunity to be honest, to tell me the truth, and instead, she had lied to my face. As time passed, I began to rebuild my life. I spent more time with friends and family who had been supportive throughout the entire ordeal. They reminded me that I was deserving of respect, love, and loyalty. They encouraged me to focus on myself, to heal, and to move forward. I started doing things I'd put off for years, traveling, working on my personal goals, and rediscovering hobbies that I had abandoned while trying to please Emily. But life had a funny way of throwing curveballs. Just when I thought I had regained my footing, Emily reached out. It was a simple text, one that seemed to have come from nowhere. I know I messed up. I've lost everything because of my selfishness. Please, can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time, trying to process what it meant. Was she truly sorry, or was she just trying to salvage what was left of her shattered life? I didn't respond immediately. I wanted to be sure of my feelings. Was I still angry? Was I still hurt? I was, but there was also something else. Indifference. In the end, that was what struck me the most. I no longer cared enough to chase her forgiveness or try to fix what was beyond repair. The next day, Emily called. I answered, and her voice was softer than I had ever heard it. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I've been thinking a lot. I've lost everything, and I don't know how to fix it, she said, her words shaky. I'm sorry, Emily, but I've moved on. I've spent too long holding on to something that was never real. Her silence was almost deafening. I could hear the shakiness in her breath as she processed what I had said. I wasn't sure what she had expected. Perhaps that I would offer her sympathy or tell her everything would be okay. But I wasn't that person anymore. I had realized that I didn't need to save her. I needed to save myself. I understand, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I was selfish, and I regret everything. I paused before responding. You can regret all you want, but the damage is done. You made a choice, and I'm not going to sit around waiting for you to figure out yours. There was a long pause before she spoke again, her voice now almost a whisper. I'm sorry for everything. I ruined our lives. You did, Emily, but I have to move on. I'm done. That was the last time we spoke. In the months that followed, Emily's life seemed to spiral further. Without her job, her social circle began to shrink. People who once supported her turned their backs, and she was left to face the consequences of her actions alone. Word about her affair spread, and it was clear that her reputation was beyond repair. She had ruined everything. The trust, the marriage, her career, and her friendships. As for me, I focused on myself. I took up new hobbies, made new friends, and even started dating again. I was cautious at first, not sure if I was ready for another relationship. But as I spent time with others, I began to realize something. My value was not defined by Emily's betrayal. I was worthy of love, respect, and happiness. I didn't need to settle for a relationship that left me feeling broken and empty. Eventually, I met someone new. She was kind, genuine, and understanding. We took things slow, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. I realized that not all relationships would end in heartbreak, and I had the power to choose who I allowed into my life. While Emily's actions had caused immense pain, they had also led me to a place of self-discovery. I had learned the importance of boundaries, of knowing my worth, and of never settling for anything less than what I deserved. I was no longer the man I was 6 months ago. I had become stronger, wiser, and more determined to live a life that was true to myself. In the end, Emily had her chance to change, to fix things, but she chose not to, and that decision was hers alone to bear. As for me, I had moved on, and with each passing day, I became more and more certain that my best days were still ahead of me. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story and want more real-life stories like this, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.